Maya and Benji, thank you both for being here. Maya, I want to start with you. You are an animator, a director, an actress, an environmentalist, a fashion founder. You were here in 2021. So Maya, tell us what's the latest.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here in Vienna. I actually spoke virtually in 2021 and have been a part of the board, and I'm now here for the first time in person, and it's just been absolutely amazing. I became an environmental and climate activist in 2008 when I was 8 years old. And I have always been passionate about environmental science, climate action, and just what people of all ages, all backgrounds can do to make a difference in some way. And so, as you basically just said, I am a multi-hyphenate. I'm passionate about a lot of things, along with being an environmentalist. I am also an animator and a filmmaker. I am actually the owner of my own production company called Upendo Productions, and we are creating the next generation of what does environmental theming and education look like in media? How do we do things that are experimental and reach more people and call people in who aren't in the space and kind of break outside of the echo chamber? So right now I'm currently directing an animated action adventure short film called Asali, Power of the Pollinators, executive produced by Viola Davis, featuring the voice talents of Whoopi Goldberg, Monique Coleman, and Calum Worthy, and you saw a bit of it during that preview. So it's just something that I'm really excited about, and of course we'll share more about, but that's what's new with me as far as one of my biggest passion projects.
That's all? We're actually seeing it here. This looks awesome. I saw the trailer on there. So how did you get Viola Davis and Whoopi Goldberg involved? Because those are two very impressive names.
Yeah, I mean, I do so much work across not only environment sustainability, but as well as gender equity. There's so many overlaps with that. I actually met Whoopi when I was 15 years old, when I was featured on the talk show The View in 2015. And, you know, I'm really focused on kind of bridging, like using the power of independent animation, which is a really rapidly growing world, which I've always been very passionate about, being an animator myself. And not only, you know, me working on this project and working with talents like Whoopi and, you know, Viola Davis, Julius 10, and Juvie Productions as EPs, but also we're also creating jobs for the next generation of young artists, animators, storytellers, and we have artists from 12 different countries around the world who are all young people working on this project right now that'll be coming out very, very soon.
Well, that was a good tease right there. Well, speaking of reaching out, Benji Backer, your story's pretty impressive. You're a conservative environmentalist, which I think, other than Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're one of the few I've ever heard of. You actually wrote a book by that name, but tell us, how did that journey come to be?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor to be here. And Maya and I have actually very similar stories. 2008, I was 10 years old, so she beat me by 2 years. But we've both been on The View, too. She also beat me by 9 years on that one. But you know, growing up, I grew up in Wisconsin, which is probably a state that most people haven't heard of. It's right north of Chicago, kind of by Canada. It's what Rainn Wilson was talking about. Milwaukee, there we go. I think is what was said back there. I hope. But you know, that's the middle America that Rainn Wilson was talking about. And that part of America has been completely left behind in the environmental conversation. I'm a conservative that believes climate change is real. I'm a conservative that believes that climate action is imperative. But I also am a conservative climate activist that believes that middle America and middle Americans need to be represented in the solutions. But that's not just true in the United States. It's true around the world. This polarization of climate change and the environment hasn't always been the case. There's a lot of young people in this room. In our lifetimes, we haven't seen it. But Arnold Schwarzenegger, you were talking about how he was a conservative, you know, climate activist. Republicans and Democrats used to work together in the United States on this issue. It might be hard to believe, but that was the norm. And it is my goal to make that the norm again, because it's not just in the United States, but around the world. If we cannot agree across unlikely boundaries and ideologies that climate change and the environment is important, we will never solve the problem. This affects all of us, regardless of who we vote for, regardless of what our border is. And until we get to that common ground and build those unlikely allyships that have been talked about today, we won't see the action. But I believe that we will make this issue nonpartisan. We will make it non-political. We'll terminate not just pollution, but we'll terminate the polarization of the issue, and we'll terminate the partisanship of the issue once and for all.
Well, you did start a foundation called Nature is Nonpartisan. Certainly worthy of applause. So I think we understand your motivation, but as you start this, what would be your vision? What would be the next steps here for, as you and Maya try to reach out through animation? What's your plan to reach those people in Middle America?
It's got to be advocacy, and Middle America needs to understand how this issue affects them. What I think the climate community needs to do differently and better, which is what Arnold was talking about, is the communications aspect. People's motives for talking about climate change and the environment are going to be inherently different than each other. I lived in Seattle, which is a very liberal US city for a very long time, very climate-heavy city. But growing up in Wisconsin, it was all about clean air, clean water, protecting forests, protecting lakes. It was a farming area, so it was about protecting people's livelihoods and their communities. That's a different message than what somebody in Seattle would be using, and we have to understand people's motives and why they'd be different, and then help them advocate to elected officials. Donald Trump needs to hear that it's not just liberals that care about this issue, which is what he thinks. It's also conservatives. And that needs to be, every conservative and liberal needs to know that this is not just a liberal or conservative issue. This is an American issue, this is a global issue, and most of all, it is a human issue. And until we communicate that to politicians, they won't go the course that we need.
Well, I love that. I think that is the theme. Unite in action, terminate pollution. Maya, as you hear that, what does that message mean to you? How do you interpret that message? Unite in action, terminate pollution.
For me, I think Unite in Action, Terminate Pollution, which I just think is an awesome, awesome theme for this year. I think it really, really showcases, especially the Unite in Action part. You know, we're here from all around the world, from various disciplines across this topic, across sustainability, environment, climate, nature conservation, whatever it is that you want to call it, whatever it is your discipline is, we're all coming together with a shared passion for protecting our planet. And the biggest myth is that environmental issues are a niche, when in actuality, they're the multiplier for everything that we care about. Every cause, every issue, every industry. Nothing can succeed on a planet that is not surviving, that humans are not able to thrive and live in a healthy way in. So that's really what it resonates for me, and that's something that I really try to communicate through my work. You know, over the course of 17 years, I've spoke at schools and conferences and summits and organizations around the world, from Clayton County, Georgia to Narok County, Kenya. And what I really find, especially with young people, is that, you know, my generation, Generation Z, we're one of the most aware of what is happening to our planet. And yes, we're out, you know, in the streets where we're making change and all of this, but there's a big section of people of my generation who are just frozen, who are stuck, who have given up, who don't see change happening from their world leaders, and have basically just are frozen in fear or disappointment and don't know what to do or don't know where to start. And so it's really important to me to utilize mediums such as animation, such as fashion, sustainable fashion, every medium imaginable to call more people in a really powerful way.
And Benji, you talk about with this message trying to reach people, as you look, for a lot of people, perhaps conservatives, as you said, may feel a little bit left out. So as you look at the challenge, particularly for young people, with this Unite in Action, what do you see the effective messaging being, or, you know, as you, for some of the fellow young people out here, to reach those people who maybe politically don't feel quite as aligned?
Well, first of all, I think that your point, Maya, is exactly spot on, which is that Gen Z feels paralyzed. And I get it. There's some serious big challenges out there. And every time we open up social media, we see it again and again and again and again, and it can feel really draining. But Maya and I are perfect examples, and everyone in this room that's young is a perfect example that you are never too young to make it in terms of a huge impact and a huge difference. She started at 8, I started at 10. We're listened to partially because of our age. So don't shy away from your leadership role because of your age. Lean into it because of your age. But I also think you have to lean into it in a very productive way. I'll be honest, I think that blocking traffic and throwing soup at paintings is not an effective way to change hearts and minds. I think the way to change hearts and minds is to sit down with leaders, tell them on behalf of the people that you want a difference to be made on this issue, and bring a diverse group of stakeholders, not just the preaching to the choir group, but you need all of the community to be involved in these conversations with elected officials. Otherwise, they're just going to see it as a one-sided issue. So we have to bring our voice, but we have to bring it with unlikely allies. And that's sometimes uncomfortable, because there's a lot of people who don't want to affiliate with me because I'm conservative. There's also a lot of conservatives that don't want to affiliate with me because I'm an environmentalist and a climate activist. And until we get out of that polarizing mindset, and we're actually willing as young people to maybe break that mold, to say, you know what, we're going to leave those stereotypes behind. We just have one end goal in common, and that's to have a better, healthier planet for future generations. And I'm gonna go with somebody who looks different than me, who speaks different than me, who acts different than me, who might be a different age than me, and we're gonna go to an elected official and tell them what they need to do in a respectful, productive way. That is how we can make a difference. Young people are the future of this, but it's also not just the future, it's the now. We have so much of an opportunity to make a difference here.
I absolutely love that. Well said. So listen, unite in action. We want people, let's build some allies here. How can people get in touch with you, Maya?
So, well, first of all, Asali Power of the Pollinators is releasing July of this year, and it's being released completely independently. We're collaborating also, not only sharing this across the internet, but also collaborating with organizations like the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, and a number of other organizations and companies to make this a global movement, to use the power of art, of creativity, of fandom, culture, to really drive tangible change and grassroots action, which we need now more than ever around the world. So you can find more about me. I'm everywhere at Maya Pen. Maya's Ideas is my username everywhere. And please follow Asali at Asali Movie. So that's ASALI, Asali Movie. Or go to asali.movie for the official website. So.
Very smooth. That was well done. You've done this before. Benji, what about you? How do people get in touch with you, bud?
Well, it's pretty easy, at Benji Backer on social media, but also, most importantly, follow my organization, Nature's Nonpartisan. We're trying to build a movement around the world and in the United States first, because we can't do everything at once, but around the world to make the environment a non-political issue again. But that starts with everybody in this room, so don't just follow us, live it in your day-to-day lives. The person who you think doesn't care about this issue does, in just a different way than you might think. We need to reach them, we need to get to them, have those tough conversations. You can follow me on social media, but the real work becomes on to us in our own individual communities, and we're all gonna do this together. Thanks so much.
I feel like the future of climate activism is very bright with you two involved. One more time, Maya Pen and Benji Backer.